good morning, good afternoon, good evening to people who are going to be joining in on this second episode of season 4 of Half an Hour. We have had a small glitch on Instagram where it doesn't allow somebody from the United Arab Emirates to join a live session or accept a request from somebody from India to accept it in the UAE. So we live with a technological limitation. And to introduce Renyl, first of all, is a very good friend of mine, and we used to work in Infosys together. In fact, he replaced me in my role, and maybe because of that, because I'm generally a good luck charm, he's just moved from one height to the other, literally and figuratively, and moved places, just scored big in terms of his professional career. And he's been on 40 under 40 of the airline economics back in 2017. That was a time I think he just got out of his teens. If I'm not mistaken, he would have still qualified for 20 under 20 as well at that point in time. And it gives me an absolute pleasure to welcome now the CFO of Bayanat.AI, a G42 company. And Renyl has spearheaded from the finance side the entire listing process for the company at the Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange. Today, it's going to be an education session on what does it take to be the CFO, which in itself is a dream job for every finance professional out there, and do the absolute dream job within the dream job, which is to take a company into the listing process. Renyl, welcome. Welcome to Half an Hour.
Thank you so much, Arun. Thanks for having me. I know it's a little formal the way we are talking right now. It's not the normal way. But really appreciate your kind words and the reminiscence of the past.
It's nice, Renyl, that we both are sitting and doing this show because there's some level of parity in this conversation. Because me standing and you sitting would have also looked the same way. I'm aware of that. So, Renyl, first things first. You are a chartered accountant, and you did from St. Joseph in Kozhikode itself your graduation.
Yeah.
And I also saw that you did your CPA from Australia. Was it the full-fledged CPA, or was it like one component or a diploma course that they had kind of?
No, so it is. What happens with the CPA is that if you are a chartered accountant, then you can essentially get a good standing certificate and then get a ASA or Accounting Standards Award or something like that, right? But then you need to complete your examinations and then you become a FCPA, which is a fellow certified public accountant. So I did the full-fledged CPA. But it's not as if you need to go through all the sections. So there are exemptions or benefits that are available if you're a chartered accountant. So yeah, it's not that tough.
And Renyl, tell me, I took up commerce because I couldn't do science. Was it the same for you, or you had a love for commerce and you wanted to shine big in commerce right from the beginning?
So I come from a family of traders, right? For the last few generations, we actually have been engaged in various kinds of trading businesses in and around Calicut, which is my hometown. And that passion has always been there, right? So even when I was in school, I always used to say that I want to get into business or into commerce or something. And then it so happened that being in the CBSE syllabus or something, your marks are always lower than the state syllabus. And then I wanted commerce. My parents wanted me to sort of start with science and maths and see how it goes because I had good marks. And thankfully, it ended up that the college only had commerce seats, right?
Nice.
So I ended up being in commerce at that point. But I always believe that if I had taken science and maths, I would have been not as happy as I am right now.
Super. And before we get to the actual portion on the Bayanat and the IPO, I have seen you for the last roughly 16 years, Renyl, 16 to 17 years.
Yeah.
I'm an absolute admirer of how you have transformed as a finance professional. I mean, the Renyl that I saw you when you walked into the Bangalore campus of Infosys is very different from the Renyl I meet today. And genuine appreciation, Renyl, was that like a trigger point, watershed moment, or was it step after step after step in reaching where you are today?
So I strongly believe in having a dream and trying to pursue it, right? So just before you left for Australia, I'm pretty sure we've had conversations about how I've always wanted to move to the Middle East. And I've sort of pursued the dream of moving to the Middle East, not knowing what else to do. But then I've just been lucky in the sense that I was sort of at the right place at the right time. So when Gulf Air was sort of going down, I went there for that period of time after Infosys. And then the team at Gulf Air moved to Etihad. They brought me in, and Etihad was still a very small airline with about 200, 300 pilots and about 1,800 crew. We were still operating out of porter cabins, and it was a small operation, 60 destinations at max. And then I had the opportunity of doing some incredible things at Etihad, including scorecards and M&A and financial planning and control, and a lot of things, setting up a lot of things, traveling a lot to a lot of places, being exposed to very senior people across the industry. So I just consider myself extremely lucky. I always had a dream, although I didn't know where I'll end up. And I always believed that, if I lacked something, I had to make it up with hard work. And that I uphold even today, right? I still believe that there are shortcomings in certain things, and I sort of try to make that up with hard work.
Lovely. Amazing. So now you also made it to the 40 under 40, and there were billboards on the Kerala highways that had your life-size poster in itself is about 45 feet, Renyl, and this one was really, really big. How was the feeling, and how did the family react to it?
So I don't know about the billboards part. I'm not sure whether that was somebody in our group making fun of me or not, but most probably it was. But yes, I did get to the 40 under 40. Again, one of those things that I'd always dreamt about in my sort of career, where I wanted to be in that list for some reason, right? Always wanted to be in the 40 under 40 of some list of some caliber. And it so happened that Airline Economics, which is the most predominant or most famous aviation magazine, sort of picked me up as one of the people who have done enough to qualify in that list. The family was obviously very excited. What that helped me do is that, I was always a sort of an inward person with not much. I don't go for all these conferences and trying to network and do stuff like that. But it sort of put me out there automatically. Once you get into that segment, then people sort of know who you are and what you're doing. If at all, if it's for the short period of time. So the family was very happy. I think there were a few newspapers in Kerala that actually picked it up and published it. That I remember for sure.
Yeah.
It was brilliant and amazing. It sort of helped me in a lot of ways because, that's something that I have. It's like my CPA or my CA or my education or my family. It's something that I have, and nobody can take it away from me.
Amazing. Fantastic. And you were in some of the most amazing, iconic moments of transactions in India and aviation with the Etihad stake at Jet, which means you'll have to straddle between two very different cultures, two different companies. Maybe your Jet happened after Etihad, right? So that was kind of a segue into your stint at Jet, if I'm not mistaken. So how was the experience of possibly the most sought after, looked into, uh, all kinds of attention on that particular transaction? You were kind of spearheading that, Renyl. How, to be very honest, you were perhaps in your early 30s or mid 30s at that point in time. So much of pressure. How did you even manage?
I just turned 30 at that point in time, right? Or before 30 years old. And meeting the who's who of India, coming from a small town like Calicut. I'd only met our great founders at Infosys and the senior team at Infosys before that, right, at Bangalore. And being thrust into the corporate world in India, the senior most, and being thrust into the political spectrum and the legal spectrum of India, where you sort of start dealing with, I don't want to not name people, but the most senior people in the country, was an eye-opener, right? You suddenly find yourself in a situation where you sort of understand how things work in the higher level. It was extremely painful. I still remember that I sent an email half cooked because I was sort of asleep at 3 in the morning, and I had to send it out. And the next day, my colleagues came and said, do you know that that email only had half of what you had to say, right? And I'm like, I'm extremely sorry, but those things happen. What happened at Jet initially was that I was always looked upon as this young boy, right? Not even a young kid, young boy who had just come from Calicut or had done some time at Bahrain and Abu Dhabi. I didn't know much, and it actually benefited me because I was always seen as somebody who couldn't do something, right? Because I was too young, not because they had any other doubts. You know how in India at that time, 10 years ago, people always thought that you had to have a little bit of gray hair to get things done. And I had the
Not necessarily that it helps. Let me tell you that. Yeah.
I actually had the opportunity to do some small changes in the organization, and which led to some massive results at that point in time, with the help of my colleagues, of course, and people who were working with me, and the management team altogether. And that actually helped me even elevate my status a bit within both Jet and Etihad. The trust that I gained, it actually helped me understand. Now that I think back at it, as you asked this question, it actually helped me build the first steps of how to manage expectations and how to convey and how to set things up. It led to the growth of my professional career in terms of suddenly I'm presenting to the board of Jet, and I'm meeting all the more important people. I'm traveling across trying to meet bankers and others, and it was a completely different experience. And again, I was just lucky to be there at that right time. And like I said, I just had the opportunity to actually push through that. Even in the face of rejection, I sort of said, look, if they anyway think that I can't do much, then there's nothing much that can go wrong, right? Either they say, okay, we were right, or it ended up in a situation where I just loved my stint at Jet, where we could do so many important things for the company, and for my airline, which was Etihad at that time. And I don't speak about it much these days, but that was really we say that what's made in the fire does not bend in the sun, right? So it was sort of like that. I don't think I have faced tougher challenges than that phase of my life. And like you said, I was just 30 at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Renyl, now moving to your current role, right? So, Bayanat.AI, taking it to an IPO, and you came into this specific role. You started with the G42 group itself, and then moved in here. Right? Tell us a little bit about what Bayanat does. 60
So
seconds.
Bayanat is a geospatial AI company. It is actually the original Bayanat has been in existence for 40 plus years. Bayanat was responsible for drawing up the first maps of the country. What we did as G42 after our acquisition was that we infused artificial intelligence into that maps or the data set that was available, thereby creating a cube or a platform that can actually provide analytics and decision-based data services, which ensures that the user of that data can actually use it for any purpose. So be it for smart city planning, digital twin, mobility services, or operational support. So we essentially have 3 units right now. One is GIQ, which is geospatial intelligence, which sort of cuts across all other units. This is the oldest segment that we have, where we generate the information, we do the survey, we ensure that we have the right level of information available in terms of mapping and surveying. And then we have smart operation solutions, which we call SOPs, which provides our clients in both government, public, and mining or oil and gas services with data to ensure that their logistical operations and operating standards are the highest, and efficiency is derived throughout the process. And the third segment is smart mobility solutions. We call it SMOS, which is leapfrogging Abu Dhabi and therefore the UAE into autonomous electric vehicles. So we have implemented a program across Abu Dhabi, and inshallah very soon all around Abu Dhabi, where we already have taxis and buses and trams that ply on the roads, and passengers can call for them without any human intervention. So we're essentially taking away the human element of transport from the UAE.
Wow, heartbreaking stuff. And why does a company go for an IPO, Renyl? If you are well funded, have great private equity players, investors on board, why bother taking your financials to everyone?
Shouldn't we share something that's good with everybody?
Oh, lovely. How philosophical. Now tell me the answer.
Our economy, the UAE economy, is relatively smaller and in a nascent stage if you compare it to other economies of the world, right? Like the US or India or China. We believe that we are actually bringing it to maturity in a much faster pace. So the leadership of this country is very focused on bringing all around growth and maturity for its people and citizens and residents. One of the aspects is obviously health, economy, happiness, and essentially all of this put together, prosperity and good governance, right? So when you look at economy as an aspect that needs to be covered to ensure all round progress for the country, a robust stock market, a robust financial system, which is the best in the world in terms of both governance and ethics and standards, is highly important. Therefore, the leadership has given a lot of impetus on the stock exchange, both the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange and the Dubai Financial Markets. And we are essentially providing that opportunity for investors across the globe. Because UAE, if you look at it last year, right, when the whole world was going through a really bad phase in terms of investment returns, UAE was the final frontier where it delivered significant growth for all the investors. The leadership is actually giving an opportunity for every investor around the world to come and invest in this country and ensure that they can participate in the growth that has been invested into for the last 50 years, right? So you're essentially coming in over the last 2 years or 3 years and reaping the benefits of investment and thought and leadership that has gone into this country for 50 years. So as part of that process, we were the first company within the G42 realm to actually go for an IPO. And alhamdulillah, we were the most successful IPO in the world last year, right? So we gave significant benefits to our shareholders in terms of value creation last year. And that's why I said, look, we should always share something that's good with everyone.
So if the statistic I remember is right, it was 4x in terms of price increase and 90x in terms of subscription. Is that right?
Yeah. So 90x, including institutional investors. If we exclude institutional investors, it's also 400, close to 400x.
Oh my God.
In terms of oversubscription.
Unbelievable. And in terms of agencies and stakeholders, more from an education perspective, Renyl, what are the various pieces of this beautiful recipe called a listing? Who are all the various people you talk to within the business and outside the business to get to that dung?
So you obviously need internal support, right? You need to ensure that your leadership, your company's leadership is aligned to what you want to do. So in terms of offer pricing, right? How much percentage do you want to offer? How much of it should be placed as to strategic investors? How much of it should be provided as free float in the market? How much of it should be provided to retail investors? So that's very important. And then you come up with, understanding of your valuation and how your valuation will be seen or perceived outside. So those are the internal elements. And externally, you need to ensure that, people are well aware of the company and what it's trying to do. So there's a lot of marketing effort that's involved. And then you have advisors, of course. You have a listing advisor. which is typically a bank, which does your book building process. You have probably you have another advisor who helps you with retail tranche, one with professional and the second with retail. And then you have a legal advisor, which is very, very important. You have one of the big fours that actually does the valuation support for you. You also need your auditors on your side to ensure that, like I was given 45 days to do a full IPO. Right? We were ready, but 45 days was all I had. So mid-September is when I'm told that, October you need to do it, and I pushed it to 31st October, which is the last day of October, to do the IPO. So like when we created a new holding company to ensure that the process is simpler, because we've got other entities underneath our structure. And then like the reason I say that is our auditors were so supportive that they turned around the quarterly numbers within a week. Like you can't expect that, right? So you need support. Nobody is sort of, outside, whether it's a media consultants, your in-house team. Like my team was working 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. And every weekend, like we would, as a team, go to sleep. Like we would know when everyone's going to sleep. Like I'm sending the last email at 3 or 4 in the morning, and then the others are also responding to the emails at 6 in the morning. Right. So we are all like working towards this really, really tight deadline. So I think everybody's important. We can't say like anything could have gone wrong, right? Like for a week, if somebody had thrown the spanner into the wheels and said, like the listing advisors came back and said, look, this doesn't work for us. So the lawyers came back and last minute they'd forgotten something. Then do I take the credit for the IPO, or do they take the blame for the IPO? Is the quintessential question, right? So it's amazing teamwork that went into it, and I could feel even me. That was a stage where I, like what you see now, what you've seen in December when we met the last. That's me coming out of my complete shell, right? That's me coming out and saying, look, we can do these amazing things together. It was a great experience. So everybody, like tons of people involved. But we also did the cheapest IPO that I know of. I don't want to quote the number, but we spent maybe less than 5% of what others would spend.
Well, maybe you have a running model. You could possibly create a new business services called listing. Renyl, I wouldn't put it beyond you, knowing you, right? Because somewhere the entrepreneur in you will have to start to shine. Okay, we'll find that out soon. But Renyl, tell me this: between a pre-listing and a post-listing scenario for a company, are there more parameters that get considered when you take any decision for the company? By you, I mean the management. Is it like, okay, how will the markets react to this? Is that like a top question? Is it like one of the questions? What has changed?
So I was extremely lucky to have people within my friends network. I don't want to name them, but they know who they are if ever they listen to this, who had done this in the past, right? So I sort of piggybacked on them, always could call them at any point and ask them, look, this is going on, what should I do, right? So that was very important for me. Our leadership was very focused. The company leadership was very, very focused. They knew exactly what they wanted, right? And they had all the right connections. They could make things work if need be. So from a pre-listing perspective, I had all that support in the pre-listing perspective, but post-listing, I'm alone. Like in investor relations is with me, the listing compliance is with me, and there's nothing that can be done that can change the way my regulators work, whether it's ADGM or ESCA or ADX. ADGM is the free zone in Abu Dhabi Global Markets. And ESCA is a securities agency that is here. So I need to work with all of them to ensure that full compliance to all the norms within timelines. Every time I disclose something to the public, I need to ensure that the listing is done on the exchanges and the regulators are informed beforehand. So it's completely different. Now I need to think not only about performance of the company, but need to think about share price, think about disclosures. It's very important.
Awesome. So Renyl, going back to, you briefly mentioned about the team that clicked and worked together, right? So As a finance professional or as more as a leader, the transformation that you have undergone, if I understand you right, having had the conversation is like, okay, results and then enablement for results and then empowerment for enablement of results. That's how I would perhaps summarize how you have grown as a professional, right? So, first, can you confirm to that? Is that a fair assessment? A 10-second
Yeah, I
assessment?
mean, yeah, I mean, there are so many aspects that go into it, right? What happens at home is very important as well. Let's not forget, if I had a wife or a family or parents who constantly crave for my attention and couldn't, sort of put up with all the vagaries or the requirements of my work, then I wouldn't be where I am. So that's also very important.
Right. So your advice for new professionals who are entering and who want to reach for the stars but are only seeing stars in few or more of their days at work, what would you tell them, Renal? I'm not even going to ask you what would you tell your 22-year-old self. I'm going to ask you the current 22 to 25-year-old people who come in with all guns blazing, with tremendous ambition and rightfully so. What are the two, three things that you would tell them as the key traits that is important to reach the top as a finance professional to start with?
As a finance professional, I would strongly suggest people to not just focus on the nitty-gritties of doing a job, right? The bigger picture is very, very important, and that's why we miss a lot of the things, right? We consider ourselves good accountants, and no offense to anybody, I honestly believe that accounting as a profession is going to be so disrupted over the next 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years, I don't know. But maybe our generation can survive based on accounting. But the future, from what I've seen, is going to be so disruptive that accounting as a profession will undergo significant changes. The bigger picture is important. Hard work is very, very important. Like, you can be as smart as you want to be, but if you want to party every night, um, we have a slight problem, right? Nobody can help you with that. And your 20s and 30s are very, very important, right? You can sort of see, it's one thing to have a dream to reach somewhere, right? And then the other thing is to, how do you behave when you get there, and how can you expand yourself after you reach that place? That's very important. The third is respect. Respect for yourself, respect for people who are supporting you in this process, be it your team, be it your family, respect for what you're doing, the people who are providing you your income, right, in whichever way you are. That's very important. What I've noticed and what I've realized now is that I could have achieved so much more if I had the third aspect, right? A little bit more than what I had. I think I have. I mean, these things come when you become a little bit more mature. But I would say that, sort of those three things are important. But then, if I don't mention this, I'll not be doing justice. Mentorship is very important, and I don't just mean mentorship from a finance professional, but somebody who can guide you, tell you, somebody who can act as a mirror for you, right? Whether it's a friend or a professional mentor, like a coach, or a friend, or a family member, or somebody, right? It's very, very important. Mentorship can sort of extrapolate what you have and exponentially grow that.
Amazing. Renal, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure talking to you. It's a pleasure, a pity that I couldn't get other people to feed in their questions, but I consider that a privilege that has just conspired to happen for me. That I could ask all half an hour questions from my side. Thank you very much, Renal, and wish you the very best and look forward to meeting you the next time you're around in India. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Arun. I look forward to you coming to UAE and experiencing this wonderful country as well one day.
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Renal. See you.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.